non-Christian family. In third grade, I started going to church because my father was invited by his coworkers that all went to the same church. And obviously, my brother and I were like the youngest in the family, so we were brought along because we had nothing to do. And it became kind of like an extracurricular because I just like go every week and like learn something and then like go back and do nothing about it. And so I kind of treated it like a history class where I just like learned about the Bible. When I thought about Jesus' death and resurrection, I only thought of it as something that was true and only backed by the fact that Jesus was seen after he rose from the grave. So basically, I believe everything that happened in the Bible was true, but that was the extent of it. And with that kind of belief, I didn't really like put church as a high priority in my life. It was hard for me to grasp that Christ was to be evident in our lives and how he could change lives. I did know that Christians were different based on like what the other kids would say in Sunday school and like how they applied the Bible. But I just like put it off as like people being like born and raised in a Christian household. I didn't know about like Christ changing lives. And so very quickly I just like built up my whole life like separate from the church because it was like really easy to. There was no one in my church that went to my school, and so I didn't really have accountability there. And then like at home, my father remained unchanged and my brother stopped going to church after like 3 years. And at school I only had non-Christian friends. And so basically I still went to church, but it was only part of like a weekly routine. My life and my desires were in conflict with what the church taught, and the conflict only grew stronger in high school because I thought I was too busy for church. And I would often say to myself, like, I'm too busy to be a Christian, I'll just like be a Christian later on in life. And I would often like study really hard day and night because I wanted to please my mother with good grades. I also still had a lot of non-Christian friends whose standards of what good and bad were very different from what the Bible taught. So I often lowered my standards on what bad and shameful was. And I think by high school I knew that like Christianity was giving up your life for Christ. And like everyone in my class was getting baptized, so Sunday school teachers would approach me, say like, do you want to get baptized? And I often said no because I didn't really want to change my life. I didn't want to be a Christian. I always thought like Christians were like too good for me, and then I didn't really feel connected to them. And so basically, I just lived my life kind of separate from the church, even though I still attended. I guess God knew that that kind of thinking would kind of break me down at some point. So like in high school, he inserted some people in my life. Freshman year, I was getting my schedule, and this girl started talking to me, and I didn't really think much of it, but we had a lot of mutual friends, and so we were able to like talk a lot. She was in my class sophomore year, and so then we were able to talk a bit more, and I realized that I knew this girl from church, but she had left the church because she go to a different church because her father became a pastor. And so I told her that I knew her, and so she started bringing me to, or like telling me to go to a Christian club. But I didn't really want to go because I thought I was too busy, like outside of school, to like give up my lunches. And I also wanted to hang out with my non-Christian friends during lunch. So it kind of showed this state of sin I was in. I was putting my desires before God, and I was chasing the wind. And I was completely unreceptive of God's love for me. But my friend remained kind of unfazed and kept on like asking me every single week to go to Christian club. And so then I kind of said yes, just to get her off my case. And so I went and I realized that like a lot of my classmates were Christian. And so I kept on going because there was that familiarity. But I mostly came to hang out. But things started changing at the end of the year where I realized I needed those people. I was getting physically and emotionally weak because I felt like a lot of things were out of my control. My oldest brother was all set to go to med school, and my second brother was all set to go to college. And I felt like I didn't really do so well, and so I felt like everything I did was fruitless. So a lot of my weakness showed up at home, and so like late one night, my mom was like, "You go to church all this time, and you're still anxious about everything." So she told me to pray about it, and so that night I started like praying, and like I set apart my trust for him. But the weakness kind of like continued into the summer, and because I still held on to like some people in my life. But that summer I also had a job with a guy from Christian Club, and we were partners to work together. And so I'm like, oh gosh, I need to like hide myself. I need to like hide my true self, and like make sure I look Christian because he thinks I'm Christian. But like I would obviously like you speak what your heart is feeling, and so then I was like really anxious about school. And always refer to 1 Corinthians 1:27 where it says the weak will strengthen the strong, and that really hit me that like it's not by our own merits that God loves us, and that we are all deserving of God's blood being shed for us to cover our sin. And at that point, I thought it more obedient and like more easy to be obedient to God because I knew that He loved me. And since then, I've been striving to love God more and seek God more, get immersed into and to get more immersed into the Word. Another Christian friend suggested I subscribe to your church email to get daily devotionals. I remember reading Acts chapter 2 and 3 during devotionals, and it told me to contrast Peter, like before when he denied Jesus 3 times, and to now, and he was like really bold. And so that I was really touched by that because it kind of confirmed that God can change the hardened heart. And then he also went over Hebrews 11, where he goes over a list of people that trusted God. And I realized that they were normal people. They're not like super Christian. And so as a new Christian, those 2 passages were really encouraging. And I really grew from those. I wish I could say now that I have faith like those people constantly, but there's still like changes and seasons where I like fall back. But in the end, I know that I have hope, and it brings me to close with Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose.